When he saw my last note, my dad started crying. My father and I have not had a good relationship for the past year. He tells me when I fall short of his expectations and demands nothing less from me than excellence. He never thinks my work is good enough. I had a 3.8 GPA at the end of the previous semester, but my father chastised me for being lazy and saying I should work harder to obtain a 4.0. I was selected twice for the varsity volleyball all-league team. This year, we made it to the semifinals, but all my father would talk about was the blunders I did on the court. Despite my desire to become a nurse or firefighter, he has never once encouraged me to pursue my goals. He is a wonderful spouse to my mother and does a terrific job raising my two younger brothers. However, it seems to me that he never intended to have a daughter. The worst time in my life had been the last several months. After receiving acceptance to my ideal university, I committed right away. Although it's out of state, the majority of my tuition is covered by a scholarship I earned. It would be best for me financially and personally if I attended this school. My dad disagrees. He feels that families should stay together. Therefore, for him, moving to a different state is like getting slapped in the face. In January, I informed my parents that I would be committing to a college. He has been criticizing me for being egotistical and reminding me how awful I am every day since. It stings to hear my own father call me a loser who nobody cares about and who will never amount to anything in life. For the past 3 months, we have been fighting, screaming at each other, and saying some extremely hurtful things to each other. I got to the point where I thought that after I moved out for college, I should stop talking to him. These emotions are all in line with my issues with self-alignment. For the past year and a half, I have been battling with this ideation, and it has been really difficult to continually argue with my father while trying to find a reason to live. My right thigh is a complete disaster, and I've started self-harming once more. Having gone near twice this year, I have 2 notes ready in case I follow through. Last weekend, I was on the verge of suicide, but I was prevented from setting up the rope by a chat I had with a buddy earlier in the day. Next month, I'll graduate from high school, and the day after, I intend to check myself into a mental health facility. I'm not sure whether I could make it that far. Right now, I'm that unstable. I keep the notes hidden so no one can see them, but I pulled one out to read last night after having a breakdown. I placed it on my desk before going to bed, but when I woke up this morning, I realized I hadn't put it back. My father texted me around lunchtime asking if I could have a serious talk with him when I came home. As soon as I arrived home, I stiffened up and got ready for another fight. An hour later, he came home from work, went straight into my room, and shut the door. He stated he saw my unaliving note and read it this morning as he was putting some things in my room as he sat next to me on my bed. The note's paragraph discussed his acts and his treatment of me, and it addressed every member of my family. He grasped my hand and started expressing regret for how he had treated me. He became aware of how emotionally and mentally abusive he had been to me after thinking back on how he had treated me all day. He began expressing his pride in me and complimenting me on being a good role model for my friends and brothers. Every time someone raises me up, they are constantly encouraging and have confidence in my ability to succeed in life. Well, I could detect a tremor in his voice, and his apologies sounded incredibly sincere. When I took down my sweatpants and showed him my thigh, he started crying and inquired about my issues with self-harm. He seized hold of me, began sobbing, and kept apologizing. I gave him a hug back and started crying because this made me feel sentimental. I hadn't felt so safe in his arms since we last hugged more than a year ago. I just wanted him to be a little more affectionate with me. After holding me for an hour and giving me a back rub, he promised to treat me differently. He is pleased with me and my backing. I informed him about my battle with self-abuse and my intention to check into a mental health facility following my graduation. He offered me his whole support. He examined my thigh because he is an EMT, and he suggested that most of the cuts should go in a few months. Although one of them is rather deep and will undoubtedly be elevated, I don't feel self-conscious about it. He kissed me on the head and went to grab us both a bite to eat. We had a real talk for 2 hours when he returned to my room. No one was crying, yelling, or screaming. For the first time in more than 2 years, we really spoke with one another. I've only ever desired that from him. I really want us to be in a good relationship. I want him in my life because I see how kind he is to my family and because he is the greatest paramedic in the world. My flatmate departed 1 hour ago. I have started journaling my thoughts and I am not feeling depressed or angry. I even have the desire to schedule a day of activities with him instead of ending my life. I want to give him a fair go since he sincerely regrets how he treated me and wants to earn back my trust. Even though I am still a whole mess, I feel so much better. He gave me one last check tonight and bid me goodnight as he headed to bed. It's been 2 years since he said those words to me. I'm overjoyed at the moment.